So welcome to the Committee of Adjustment meeting. It's July the 4th. This is a hybrid meeting where we are virtual and also in the council chambers. The municipality of Strathroy-Caradoc acknowledges that it is located on Treaty 21 territory. We are thankful for the generations of people who have taken care of this land, including the Chippewas of the Thames First Nation, the Munsee Delaware First Nation, and the Oneida Nation of the Thames. We'll go to roll call for Eva.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Eva Baker. I'm the Acting Secretary Treasurer for the Committee of Adjustment. I will be hosting the meeting and managing participants. Committee members joining us this evening include Member Kennis, Member Kumar, Member Vian, Member McGuire, and Member Terpstra, who is also our Chair today. Members Pelkman and Derbyshire are absent this evening. Municipal staff in attendance this evening are Jennifer Huff, Director of Building and Planning. She is joining us virtually. Aaron Besh, planner with the County of Middlesex, and Melanie from the Legal and Legislative Services team. Tonight we have 5 applications to be heard by the committee. The chair will introduce each application and provide the applicant and agent an opportunity to speak to the application. The planner will follow with their report. Public will then be invited to make comments or ask questions about the application. The chair will then call upon the committee to ask questions and make comments before the chair calls for a vote on the application. Once a decision is made, there is a 20-day appeal period from the date of decision for minor variances and 20 days from the date of notice of decision for consents. If anyone wishes to be notified of the decision, you can make a request today or make a written request following this meeting. For our virtual participants, please ensure your name is visible on Zoom, and we ask that you keep yourself muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Eva. So I am looking for a recommendation for approval of our agenda tonight. Frank, Dean, and all in favor, and that carries. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest? Being one, Frank.
I'm going to declare a conflict on 5.1.
5.1. Okay. Now we have the minutes of our meeting for June the 6th. I'm sure you've all had a chance to read them. Looking for a recommendation to approve that. Randy, supported by Frank. All in favor? And that carries. So then our first one is 5.1. Submission for consideration is an application for a minor variance, 294 Pine Tree Lane, A13, 2024. And the owners are Numbered Company, Ontario Limited, Palmer's Plumber Professional Corporation, agents Robin Fenelon. Hi, Robin. There she is. Anyone else in the audience to speak to this one? No? Okay, Aaron, if I can go to you for your report.
Thank you, Chair. So the first application before the committee this evening, again, is for 294 Pine Tree Lane in Strathroy. The purpose of this application is to seek relief from section 5.33 of the zoning bylaw to permit a front yard depth of 4.5 meters, whereas 5 meters is required in the R1 zone. And further to request relief from section 4.23A to permit a setback of 4.5 meters, whereas a minimum of 6 meters is required for attached garages. So the subject property itself is approximately 1,385 square meters in size. It's located at the terminus of Pine Tree Lane, just east of Elm Way in Strathroy. The lands contain an existing single detached dwelling. It is currently set back from the front lot line by about 8.1 meters. The property also contains an attached garage onto the house, as well as a sort of garden shed in the rear yard. The existing structures are approximately 25% of the total lot coverage as they stand today. So the applicant is proposing to construct a 26.6 square meter addition onto the front of the attached garage, and they're looking to reorient the garage doors from the front of the structure to the interior side of the garage. This will then allow 2 full vehicles to park within the structure rather than the about 1.5 vehicles that the garage can accommodate currently. With the inclusion of the proposed addition, total lot coverage would be about 26.5%, so not much of an increase. In order to reorient the garage, the applicant will also need to relocate the driveway entrance further south along the front lot line and remove the current access. So just to clarify the variances that are being requested this evening, so it does appear, 4.5 meters to 5 meters and 4.5 meters to 6 meters. So our zoning bylaw does provide two separate setback requirements. The 5 meters itself is for, the primary wall of the dwelling. And then we have an additional setback of 6 meters for garages. That includes attached and detached garages. The reasoning behind this is to ensure that there is sufficient driveway in front of the garage to accommodate a variety of lengths of vehicles, from your sedans to your larger extended pickup trucks and the like. So that is why we have the two separate variances. While they look quite similar, they do have different functions within our zoning bylaw, so we've added them both this evening. So the application has been circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. We did not receive any concerns from any of our agencies or internal departments. I have not received any comments from surrounding landowners. The application was tested against the 4 tests minor variance. I am satisfied that the 4 tests have been met. My analysis was primarily related to the fact that the driveway will now be reoriented, so the 6 meters is no longer required at the front yard. The houses in the neighborhood are also set back a variety of distances from 35 meters to about 4.5 to 5 meters. So it's not out of character for the area, and certainly orientations of garages like this one exist in the vicinity as well, very, very close nearby. So my recommendation this evening is approval of the application subject to one condition, that the front yard setback of 4.5 meters be specific to the proposed garage addition layout as identified on the supplied site plan. The reason for this condition is just to ensure that the garage is in fact reoriented, so we are not losing that driveway at the front. If they were to just put an addition and keep the driveway doors on the front, the setback of 4.5 meters would not be sufficient for the driveway. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Robin, do you have anything to add to that?
No, not really.
No? Going then to the committee, do you have any questions or concerns? No, seeing none, then I'm looking for a recommendation for approval. Mike? You make the motion. Supported by Dale. All in favor? And that carries.
From today, the 20-day appeal period will begin. During this time, either the applicant or a prescribed public body can appeal a decision made by the committee by making application to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If no appeal has been made following 20 days, the minor variance declaration will be issued.
I see there were a couple of people that came in. There's a clipboard going around. We do want you to sign in to this meeting. Thank you. Okay, then moving on, 5.2 is an application for minor variance A14-2024 for 310 Lawton Ave, Strathroy. The owners are Ariane and Joanne Baya. Don't think they're in the audience. Is there anyone else speaking to this one in the audience?
I believe they're online.
They're
The
online?
agent and the applicant are online.
Excellent. Welcome online. Okay, Erin, can I go to you for your report?
Thank you, Chair. So again, the next application before committee this evening is for 310 Lawton Crescent in Strathroy. The purpose of this application is to seek relief from section 5.34 of the zoning bylaw to permit a side yard setback of 0.86 meters, whereas a minimum of 1.2 is required for all dwellings in the R1 zone. The applicant is looking to construct an addition onto the structure, and the side yard setback would facilitate that addition. So the subject property itself is 785 square meters in size. It's located on the south side of Lawton Crescent, west of Oak Street in Strathroy. There is an existing single detached dwelling that is approximately 99.6 square meters in size, and a shed and patio cover in the rear yard. The total lot coverage for all of these structures is approximately 16%. The applicant is proposing to construct a 77.2 square meter addition onto the existing dwelling. This would be comprised of a 1-story, 45 square meter garage along the western side of the dwelling and approximately 31 square meter sunroom at the rear. In order to accommodate the appropriate width for a single car garage, the applicant does require a reduced side yard setback from the 1.2 to 0.86 meters. That's at the rear portion of the addition. The front portion would actually be 1.17 meters from the side lot line. With the inclusion of the addition, lot coverage would be about 26.3%. So the property, I assessed the 80% accessory structure in regards to the size of the single detached dwelling. There's no variance that is required for that. And I did want to just note that the structure does not currently have an attached garage, so it would be subject to our side lot line provisions of 1.2 meters on one side of the property, line, and 3 meters on the other side, which would always facilitate access to the rear of the lot if there was no attached garage. However, in this circumstance, they are adding an attached garage, so they are just subject to the 1.2 on either side of the dwelling. The application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. The Director of Building and Planning advised of no comments on the application and requests that if approved, our standard condition that stormwater be dealt with on site without negative impacts on the adjacent neighbors. The Chief Building Official advised that in order to be located closer to the property line than 1.2 meters, the exterior wall will not be permitted to have any window or door openings, and it will need to have a fire resistance rating. I spoke with the agent of the application, who's actually the designer as well. He was very familiar with these standards, and they are not actually proposing any windows or doors, but we did just want to make note of it in the application as well. I assessed the application based on the 4 tests of minor variance. I am satisfied that the 4 tests are met. I believe that with the requirement for fire rating and for no egresses on the exterior wall, there will be sufficient distancing between this addition and the next door neighbor, their dwelling, for any sort of fire protection. In terms of privacy, again, there's no windows or doors along the exterior wall, so the neighboring dwelling will not have any privacy impacts on this proposal. And as well, there's many examples in the neighborhood of attached garages being added as additions, so it certainly fits into the character of the area. So my recommendation this evening is approval subject to 3 conditions. First being that stormwater is dealt with on site without negative effects on adjacent properties to the satisfaction of the municipality. Number 2, no window or door openings be permitted along the southwestern wall of the addition. And third, that the side yard setback of 0.86 meters be specific to the proposed attached garage and sunroom addition. Similar to the last application, I wanted to specify that this is only for an attached garage in the case that they were just putting an addition for living space. Again, we would need the 1.2 meters on one side and the 3 meters on the other. So we do need to specify that this is for an attached garage addition. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Erin. Any questions or concerns by our folks who are online? No, seeing none. Going back then to our committee, any questions or concerns? Seeing none, then I'm looking for a recommendation. Frank, supported by Randy. All in favor? And that carries.
From today, the 20-day appeal period will begin. During this time, the applicant or prescribed public body can appeal the decision made by the committee by making an application to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If no appeal has been made following 20 days, the minor variance declaration will be issued.
Okay, thank you. Then moving on to 5.3, it's an application for minor variance A17-2024. 271 Metcalf Street is the address, County Road 39, Strathroy. The owner is Wilman Property. Don't know if anyone's in the audience for this one. Yes? And state your name, please.
Bill Clote.
Okay.
I'm just here to observe. I don't know if it's a new construction or in addition to a building. And the minor variance is, I believe, for lot coverage. That's the reason for it.
Okay, we'll listen to our report and then you'll probably get your answer out of that. If I can go to Aaron for that.
Thank you, Chair. So again, this application is for 271 Metcalf Street East in Strathroy. The purpose of this application is to seek relief from section 11.219 of the zoning bylaw to permit a professional office with a gross floor area of 530 square meters, whereas a minimum of 930 square meters is required in the highway commercial C2 zone. This application would allow a branch of the Salvation Army to operate from this location. So committee will be familiar with this property. We did do a minor variance in the September 7th, 2023 meeting. It was a similar application in that they were requesting to permit retail uses at this location that were under the minimum floor area requirement as set out in the C2 zone. So again, C2 being the highway commercial zone, the intent of this zone is really for large scale retail uses, your Walmarts and your big box stores that do require a lot of parking, and they are located on primary transit lines. However, they do, although the C2 zone in this area does permit office uses, again, it is restricted to uses that are a minimum of 930 square meters in size, so quite a large structure. So the landowner did advertise for a retail use. They weren't unsuccessful in finding a tenant for this location. So since that time, the landowner has been approached by the Salvation Army to lease the building and relocate their existing operations where they're currently located on 71 Maitland Terrace in Strathroy. So they believe the proposed location is ideal. It will provide ample parking, a great location for their community services, as well as good accessibility for their clients. They are also advised that the building would not require many improvements to make it a viable home for the Salvation Army. So in terms of proposed uses, the applicants indicated a number of potential uses for the proposed community and family services location, including a food bank, skills development and meal preparation instruction, English as a second language instruction, management and oversight of the Ontario Energy Support and the local electrical assistance program for low-income families, a tax clinic, income tax clinic for low-income individuals and families, and just whatever services that they offer or they have on program at that time. So the site would operate 7 days a week, could potentially also offer daytime space to third-party agencies, offering minor health and education services to low-income families and seniors. So specifically, the applicant advised that this would be something that doesn't include medical treatment. It doesn't require medical equipment. This is something that is, having someone in to speak to seniors about foot care, foot health, and things of that nature, and really limited to very small scale health services. And they also advise that this is not currently in their program, but this is just something that they're potentially considering for the future. So we did want to include it just for the full wide range of things that could be at this location. The building would also contain several administrative offices and warehouse space for the Salvation Army. So it's my opinion that the uses that are proposed by the applicant could be considered a mixture of retail and professional office uses. For example, English as a second language educational instruction could be considered like a commercial school. Training and that sort of thing can certainly fall under both the retail and office commercial category, I would say. The current use or the current zone of the Salvation Army's location is C1, and that is really to, it is specific to our downtown core. It's intended to be small scale offices and retail uses, things that rely a lot on foot traffic. So the relocation of the Salvation Army to this particular site would certainly help facilitate their reaching their clients and providing their services to a wider range. So I did want to note that the previous minor variance that was approved for the decrease to retail space still stands, so we did not need to include it as part of this variance application. The application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. I did not receive any comments or concerns from our agencies or internal departments. I did receive an email from the public with concerns that the Salvation Army would be hosting like a safe injection site at this location, and I just want to say that is absolutely not going to be part of their programming at all. It is not on the table. It is certainly not something that they're proposing, and it's not going to be an issue at this site. So I just wanted to make sure that that was made clear, that that is just a rumor. There is no base for that at all. The application was tested against the 4 tests of minor variance. Again, similar to the retail use, I look at, is this a prime candidate for a highway commercial use? Although it does have parking, ample parking for the Salvation Army, it's certainly not to the scale that you would see at a large-scale box store. It has a warehousing capability, which is useful to the Salvation Army. They will make use of the loading docks, or not docks, rather the loading doors on the structure. And really, the intent of this C2 zone is to ensure that we have very large-scale uses. This will be one organization and be operated as one unit, essentially. So I do think that it fits into the C2 criteria in that way. So my recommendation this evening is approval of the application. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Any questions from anyone in the gallery? No, seeing none, then I'm going back to the committee. Any questions?
We have, sorry for interrupting. There's one individual on Zoom. Just wanted to check to see if there's any further questions or comments.
Okay.
No, I don't have anything. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from committee? Frank?
So just to verify, there's no changes to the physical footprint of the building on the property at all?
That is correct. Everything, if there is renovations that are required, it will be internal only.
Yes, and Mike?
Thank you, Chair. So I just want to be absolutely positive in my mind that although Salvation Army is not proposing any type of injection site, the zoning itself would not support that application or type of business should they later decide to try to bring it on site. Is that correct?
I would say that that is absolutely correct. That would be, well, that is a very specific use. I think a clinic or I guess it would fall under the clinic category, which is not a permitted use in the C2 zone.
Not a permitted use. Thank you.
Okay, and I see, is it Julia? You got your hand up?
Just to identify myself, I'm the property director for the Salvation Army, and the Salvation Army does not operate safe injection sites or anything to do with the safe or otherwise distribution of drugs. So it would never be something that we would look for at this site or anywhere else for that matter.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Any other questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, then I'm looking for a recommendation. Frank, supported by Dale. Any, all in favor? And that does carry.
From today, the 20-day appeal period will begin. During this time, either the applicant or prescribed public body can appeal the decision made by the committee by making application to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If no appeal has been made following the 20 days, the minor variance declaration will be issued.
Okay, and then moving on to 5.4 is an application for minor variance A16-2024. It's 21331 Dane Street, Delaware West. Owner Ziad Jadan. Hope I got that right. Anyone in the audience to speak to that property? No? Okay.
We've
Then
got 2 on Zoom.
2 on Zoom? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, Aaron, then I'll go first to you for your report.
Thank you, Chair. So the purpose of this minor variance application is to seek relief from section 9.51B III of the zoning bylaw to permit an exterior side yard width of 6.7 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum of 10 meters in the R5-1 zone. The application also requests relief from section 4.293 to permit a county road setback from the center line of road of 21 meters, whereas a minimum of 38 meters is required for lots that front onto an arterial county road. So the subject property is located on the northwest corner of Dane Street and Longwoods Road in what we qualify as Delaware West. The property is approximately 1,216 square meters in area. There is 24 meters of frontage along Longwoods Road and 51 meters along Dane Street. So although the applicant is proposing to situate the dwelling onto Dane Street, it's actually Longwoods Road that is considered the frontage of the property. They are proposing to construct a 222.6 square meter single detached dwelling that would be connected to municipal water services, but it would have a private sanitary system. Total lot coverage would be approximately 18%. So I do want to note that there was an existing house at this location. You can see it in the location map right along the frontage of Longwoods here. There was also a large detached garage at the rear. They both have been demolished, so the site is currently vacant. In order to accommodate the proposed structure, the applicant is requesting a reduced exterior side yard depth of 6.7 meters, whereas 10 meters is required in the site-specific R5-1 zone. This zone is specific to properties within Campbellvale and Delaware West and provides a smaller setback requirement than would otherwise be required in the R5 rural residential zone. They are also requesting a setback to the center line of County Road 2, which was proposed to be 21 meters, whereas 38 is required for arterial roads. And I do want to note that the house that was there previously was located about 1 meter off the property line. So the application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. The county engineer advised of no concerns with the proposed setback reduction to County Road 2 or Longwoods Road, as the applicant is pushing the dwelling farther back than what is there currently. So essentially he is satisfied that they're making the current situation better. There are lots of examples along this stretch of road where the setback of the dwelling is 1 meter or 0 meters. So certainly this is making that sort of situation a lot better. As well, I just want to note that the Ministry of Transportation advised of no concerns with the application and no MTO permit would be required for the proposed dwelling. So I assessed the application based on the 4 tests of minor variance. I primarily looked at setback examples along Dane Street. Again, they're quite close to the property lines, so it's not out of character for the houses to be set closer to the front lot line than what is required, being the 10 meters, which would be quite significant on this width of lot. As well as the county road setback, the fact that the county engineer has not have any concerns. They're making the current situation better, as well as there will be no visibility or safety concerns created by the location of this house. So my analysis is that it does meet the 4 tests of minor variance. So my recommendation this evening is for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Any comments from the folks that are online? Hearing none, then I'm going to go to the committee for any questions or concerns. Hearing none, I'm looking for a recommendation then. Mike, supported by Randeep. All in favor? And that carries.
From today, the 20-day appeal period will begin. During this time, either the applicant or prescribed public body can appeal the decision made by the committee by making application to the Ontario Land Tribunal. If no appeal has been made following 20 days, the minor variance declaration will be issued.
Okay, then moving on to 5.5, it's an applications for consent and minor variance. 361 Park Street, this is B5 2024. And now I must have some people in the audience that want to talk about that one. And we'll start with Aaron's report.
Thank you, Chair. So the final application before committee this evening, or final applications, I should say, is a consent application which seeks permission to sever one additional residential parcel from an existing lot for the purpose of constructing 2 new single detached dwellings. This application proposes to sever the lot exactly in half, with an area of 624 meters squared for each lot and a lot frontage of 12.8 meters, again for both lots. The minor variance application seeks relief from section 5.32 of the zoning bylaw to permit lot frontages of 12.8 meters, whereas 15 meters is required in the low density residential R1 zone. So this property is located on the east side of Park Street, north of Calvert Drive in Strathroy. The lands are approximately 1,248 square meters in size. They have 25.6 meters of frontage along Park Street. So the lands are currently vacant of structures, but have been identified as significant woodland within the Middlesex Natural Heritage System study, which is then reflected in our official plan as well. The applicant, again, proposing to sever the lot exactly in half. The proposed dwellings are both single detached dwellings, which are both permitted under the R1 zone. The applicant has provided a plan of survey which depicts the lots to be severed and retained, which does show that there is, it does meet the required minimum lot areas for the R1 zone, but we do require the variance for the frontages as they are under the 15 meters that is required. So as I did mention, the property has been identified as significant woodland within the Middlesex Natural Heritage System study, and then again within our official plan. So development within these areas is prohibited unless the applicant can provide or can demonstrate that the proposed development will not have a negative impact on the natural heritage features or their function. So the applicant did retain a consultant from Dillon Consulting who did an environmental review of the land. So there is, in addition to the significant woodland to the north, there is also a provincially significant wetland, which is also a requirement under our official plan to make any development within 120 meters or so of those provincially significant wetlands also requires some sort of evaluation just to ensure that they will not be impacted as well. So the consultant that was retained by the applicant made the determination that the trees on site have all been planted trees. They are not part of the larger natural heritage feature. So any removal of those trees will not have an impact on the ecological function of the larger significant woodland. Therefore, with this opinion from the qualified biologist, the further development assessment report was not deemed to be not required as part of this application. So the application was circulated as per the requirements of the Planning Act. Manager of Environmental Services advised each lot will require individual sanitary and water connections, which are to be located wholly on the individual properties. We did just a brief look into the servicing that is located there, and it does appear that there may be more than one or a connection for each lot, but we do need to delve a little bit further. If that is already the case, then the applicant won't be required to do anything other than just a check mark on the conditions for that one. Director of Building and Planning advised that the Strathroy-Caradoc strategic plan identifies growth management as one of the key goals, stating that growth is to be managed to accommodate a range of needs and optimize municipal resources. As well, the 2022 residential land needs supply concluded that the municipality has a shortage of residential development over the long term. Severances for infill and intensification purposes can provide additional residential development opportunities in a variety of forms. And as a condition of consent, the lands to be severed will require a capital parkland dedication of $1,000. The Middlesex County Safety and Standards Officer required that each lot will be assigned a unique municipal address. Assumedly, the the more southern lot will retain the 361, but that will be determined by our department as well as the County of Middlesex. St. Clair Region Conservation Authority advised of no concerns with the proposed consent and minor variance applications. In terms of public comments, I have received a phone call from a neighbor located at 367 Park Street. Their primary concern was that the width of the lots would be out of character for this area, that they're deemed to be too narrow and just would not fit in with this group of housing along Park Street. The consent application, so I am satisfied that the proposal meets the policies of the provincial policy statement, Middlesex County and Strathroy-Caradoc official plans. The surrounding residential land uses vary in size and configuration, including smaller lots north of the subject lands in the newer subdivisions on Park Street and the newer subdivisions a little bit east on Carroll Street. The proposed building lot will generally be consistent with the character of the area in this sense. When I evaluate the character of a neighborhood, I don't look at the 100 meters or so surrounding the property. I do look at it from a slightly larger context. So if you look on Carroll Street, there are more narrow properties, there are smaller properties. So it's certainly, in my opinion, not out of character for this larger area. In regards to the significant woodlands, the applicant's biologist reviewed the site and advised that the subject trees are again not part of the larger woodland. So I'm satisfied that the official plan policies in this regard have been met. And again, both of the lots are proposed to be 624 square meters, which exceeds the minimum lot area size of 460 for lots on full municipal services. So, based on the survey and based on plan that was submitted by the applicant, I have evaluated the proposed lots and determined that they're generally capable of accommodating dwellings that will meet our lot development provisions, setbacks, lot coverage, that sort of thing. In terms of the minor variance, again, looking at the lot widths, certainly 15 meters being the requirement, 12.8 being the permitted, or sorry, the proposed lot widths. We have seen many infill developments that have had more narrow lot widths than this, and they're generally capable of accommodating decently sized homes. So my analysis of the 4 tests was based on the fact that we do have lot areas that are significantly larger than what is required. So I am satisfied that the 4 tests have been met in this case. So my conclusion, or my recommendation this evening is approval for the consent and minor variance applications. And in regards to the consent application, I have provided a list of 13 recommended conditions of approval, and I'm putting those forward to the committee this evening. Thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this?
Yes, I would. My name is Clarence Linker. I live on 367 Park, and I'm a neighbor to these adjacent lots. I'll give you a brief history of the lands. I've owned those lands for 40 plus years. Some 7-8 years ago, the services became available because the water and sewer had to service the E.J. Wright Public School. So the services were installed at that time, and that gave So at the time, the engineers said, okay, you've got a frontage here. It's a good idea to put in the stubs now, since the services were across the road and they're fairly deep, and he says, now's the time to do it. I said, what do you recommend? Well, he says there's roughly 160 odd feet there. He says put in 3 stubs, then at least they're there. So we went ahead and put in the 3 stubs, and of course before, then I decided to apply for a severance, and the reason that I didn't go to the 3 stubs or the 3 lots was there's a high voltage hydro line that runs through the property towards the back from, so that cut down the frontage of it, and we were only left with about approximately 160 feet at that. So I applied to the committee of adjustment. At the time, I think it was Mr. Gallipo who was the chair. I asked what to do. I says I consulted with the neighbors and this and that, and I'm planning on the 3 lots would simply not fit. There wasn't enough frontage, so we'll go for the 2 lots, and it was in compliance with it was in character with the neighbors. The neighbors, I'm not the only one that's objecting here, by the way. I've got a petition here for all the neighbors. They're all against it. They've got 100-foot lots, they've got 105-foot lots. Everyone along Park Street is 80, 90, 100-foot lots. That's the character of that end of Park Street. It's not until you get to the co-op housing, which is way down a mile away, that you have a condensed, or that you have smaller lots and smaller frontages. We feel that this whole thing is, the application for this is out of character with the surroundings. And I'm not sure, if I may ask, if some of your members have actually physically gone down that road and seen what is proposed. It just doesn't fit. And I'm not sure what the committee calls a minor variance. To me, at 40, 12 meter, 42 feet, and the minimum is 49.9, 50 feet, let's say, right, for the frontages. I call that, I don't know if that's considered a minor variance or a major variance. That's almost 20%. And to have a 42-foot lot right next to a 84-foot lot does not seem right at all, and all the neighbors agree with that. I realize it's a provincial plan and so on, but to create one extra lot and spoil the whole neighborhood, there's got to be a better way it's not going to solve Strathroy's housing problems, and it's not going to solve the provincial housing problem. So we feel that it's totally out of character of the area, and we're certainly opposed to it. I spent a lot of money, tens of thousands, of course. I had to do DAR and all that stuff. That's part of it. St. Clair region was involved. That's all 7 years ago. Anyhow, the chair of the Committee of Adjustment commended me at the time. He says, okay, he says, you consulted with the neighbors. They all agree that a little larger lot is better than 3 small lots. And I said, okay, now, I said, on future sales and that, the purpose was to create 2 residential lots, single-family residential lots. And I asked him, I said, does that include a semi, for example? He said, no. He said, you don't understand. He said, 2 single-family lots, and that's it. I said, fine, that's what we're after, and that's what was agreed upon. Now, as I said, 4 or 5 years later, we come up with this. And of course, Mr. Sutherland was fully aware of the status quo at the time of the sale. So that's my comments. I would encourage you, if you haven't seen the location, to go out there physically. It's a whole lot different when you see it on the screen and so on. And you say, oh, well, 42 feet, hey, we've seen something here or there or whatever, it's 42 feet, it looks all right. In certain locations, it does look all right. I can only, I don't think it's any benefit to the town either. Instead of collecting taxes from a $1 million home, you're going to collect taxes from $600,000 home or 500, whatever. And whether it, I just had somebody come up only less than a week ago, and he said, what's going on here? I said, well, this is what's being proposed, and he said, well, what are they asking for it? He said, we're looking for a large lot, which is unavailable in town, unless you go out, as you know, on 2nd Street and that, and you pay whatever, $600,000, $700,000 for a lot, and then you have to put in services still. He says, this is great. He said, I'm gonna see if I can, this is exactly what we're looking for. And I says, well, fine, go and see the owner. And I don't think that a small lot is any more sellable than a larger one, or a house for that matter. I can only point you to the severance that was done not that long ago on Burn Street and Milner Street. It looks terrible. There's no side yard, there's no backyard, and the two properties have been for sale for almost 2 years, and they're still for sale. So I'm asking, what is the advantage? And again, it just does not fit in there. That's our main concern, and that's, anyhow, I'll leave it at that, and if there's any questions, I'd like to know.
Yep, thank you, appreciate your comments.
Be able to answer it.
Thank you, appreciate that. Anyone else from the audience first?
I'm Brian Campbell from 359 Park Street, the house right to the north of that. The foundation's in that picture, but it's complete now. Like when Clarence severed these two lots off back 6 or 7 years ago, the planning department, our planning department here, approved them being adequate in size. And now, like in the staff report, they're saying that, yeah, we're gonna divide it in half and call it infilling. Well, if a lot is already planned as a lot, I don't think that would be called infilling. I always thought infilling was somebody owned a property, lived on it for years, had enough space on the side yard to sever a lot off in a subdivision and called it infilling. So to me, I don't think that's an infill lot. Also, the staff report said there's similar developments on Park Street. Well, there's nothing similar about the southern end of Park Street to the northern end of Park Street or Carroll Street or any street. We have a large wooded area behind us. We even have a campground on our street. Our street isn't even developed. It has no curves, it has no gutters, it has no sidewalks. So it's not, you can't compare that street to any other street. And plus all the other, just like Clarence says, everybody has large frontages on there. So two small houses like that, which people won't even be able to get into their backyard. If I had a lot that was 160 feet deep, I'd want to park my boat in the backyard and have a shop in my backyard. Well, you're not going to get in your backyard with two houses like that. And I'm not going to let anybody through my yard to get into their backyard. So to me, it just doesn't make sense to do that. And they would be totally out of character with that neighborhood. And I just don't see how you can say they would fit the neighborhood when there's not a single house in that area that would even look like that. It's not going to match the streetscape. It's going to have no continuity with our neighborhood. It just, to me, it doesn't make sense. So that's why I'm against it. So.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Brian.
And we do have this petition if you'd like to have it. Do you keep this or?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we do accept it for information.
something clear, or is it just this?
I gave him 2 copies.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Sorry, that's yours.
Yeah, thank you. Another comment?
My name is John Sutherland. I own that property in Park Street.
Okay.
I'm not sure what their concern is. It fits with the regulations. It does need a minor variance. They're saying that it's just easy to sell $1.5 million house as it is a $700,000 house. That's not the case. We all know what the economy is doing in these days. So my intent was to provide affordable housing for some other people. I know it's great for everybody to have a great big large home, but it just doesn't fit in our world today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other comments coming in? Then I'm going to go to the committee for comments, questions, or concerns. Frank, go to you first.
I appreciate the comments, and I think yeah, I understand what's being said. I guess I think we as a committee are in a position where it does fall within the rules of the province and the municipality, and encouraging smaller lots and infill lots. Again, I understand the different meaning of different words and that kind of stuff, but yeah, to me it seems within within the parameters of what should be allowed. So and again, I understand the concerns. I'd probably be the same if it was my neighborhood. So
Okay, thanks, Frank. Mike?
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank Claire and Brian for speaking, and for Don for speaking. 6 or 7 years ago, when the original 2 lots were created by Claire, they applied the rules that were in place at that time. And I first took a seat at this committee about 6 years ago, and I remember those rules at that point in time, as certainly Claire and Frank was here, and others. However, certainly within the last 18 months, we have had enormous changes in the provincial policy statement, which I believe has now been changed to the provincial planning statement, and they talk extensively about intensification. And quite simply, we're told we have to allow intensification if there is full services out front. And I think the newest version of that says even if there's partial services, so if you have water and you don't have sewer, we still have to allow intensification. I do want to, I've made some statements about the situation that we find ourselves in, perhaps the difference between what we have to apply as the rules compared to what we would personally like to do, which is very much, I think, what Member Kennis was trying to get across. But in putting it to a question, and I'm not sure if the director, I think she's online, or if Aaron, if you want to handle it, I have a couple of questions that I just want to be clear, because I think it's clear, it's important that everybody understand. These lots, the lot itself, the larger lot, is an R1 lot, and the change in what's allowed on an R1 lot is dramatic, and I have said to many people that there really is no more R1 zonings, because quite simply, and correct me, Aaron, I'm going to put it to a question, what exactly is now allowed on an R1 lot?
Through the chair to Member McGuire. So essentially, if you have a lot on full municipal services, you are permitted up to 3 residential units on the property as of right, without a requirement for rezoning. That can be a makeup of all 3 dwellings, or all 3 units within a single dwelling. It can be 2 units in a dwelling and 1 in an accessory building. So the makeup is very different. The only other requirement that they've provided for us really is that you just really need to accommodate one additional parking space for each unit.
Thank you. That's exactly, rather than me giving my dialogue here, it's better to put it in a question. So that's what I was looking for. So the idea that somebody is going to build the house that either of you two own or other people, and I pretty much know everybody along that stretch, even if it wasn't divided, somebody could come in and build something completely different to what is in your mind, because they're allowed 3 residential units on an R1. So the R1 that you own or I own, and I don't know what everybody else owns, they don't exist anymore. And neighborhoods are changing, and there's nothing we can do about it. It's designated by the province under the provincial policy statement, and as I said, I believe the most recent rendition is the provincial planning statement was just enacted and goes further, and I see the directors up there now. My second question has to do with, at this committee, have we done similar similar minor variances that brought R1 frontages down to 12.8 meters or less? Because I appreciate they're comparing the lot size to theirs, 100 or 80 and 90, but the reality is an R1 only requires 15 meters. So that's the standard, considerably less than what the bigger lots are. So having sat here for 6 years, have I made those decisions that brought the 15 meters down to 12.8 or less in R1s on previous applications?
Again, through the chair to Member McGuire, yes, we certainly have. There are the 2 examples I can think of off the top of my head are North Street. We did an infill lot on North Street, where is also a similar situation where it's older lots, quite wide, more sort of estate lot sizing. And then we also, another one I can think of is on Queen Street in Mount Bridges. They had a minor variance for their lot. We saw it not too long ago, actually.
So I guess my point to that is, to the committee, is this is not out of the ordinary for us in this year or in the last 18 months. And that the provincial policy statement, or the provincial planning statement, as I believe it is now termed, says we must provide different types of residences in the neighborhood. There is no longer an R1, all single family, large mansion styled neighborhoods. They simply do not exist. And there will be fewer of them over time, and we see that repeatedly at this table and certainly at other tables that Frank and I sit at. It's difficult, but that is the deck of cards that we've been given to play with. So, having heard everything you've said, I wanted to let you know what we have been told and what the rules are that we have to follow.
Well, if I may make one comment to the chair.
Yeah, sure.
Do you have to, as a committee or as a council later on, do you have to approve everything that the provincial people throw at you? In other words, there are exceptions, or you have no power at all. They just go ahead and do it. Do you not have exceptions to the rule?
So, rather than me answering that, and I should have went through you, Chair, and my apologies as he was speaking with me, I think probably Director Huff is best situated as our Director of Planning to speak to what council must do and what this committee must do.
Sure. Jennifer, you're up.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Member McGuire, as well as members of the public. So, certainly it's within the purview of the committee to make decisions as they see fit. The direction, however, in the Planning Act is that the decisions on planning matters shall be consistent with the provincial policy statement, planning statement, as well as decisions shall conform to the official plan of the county and also locally at the Strathroy-Caradoc official plan. So when a decision is made, that's the recommendations that come forward are recommendations that are consistent to and conform to those documents. If an application wasn't appealed, if committee turned something down or approved something contrary to that, and it was considered at what we call the Ontario Lands Tribunal, the subject of the discussion of the appeal is whether or not the decision in fact was consistent with and conforms to these policy documents. And I think what we heard today was Aaron's opinion was in fact this application is consistent, does conform, and represents the sound land use planning. Thank you.
Thank you.
Then I have one other question, if I may. Is a semi-detached unit allowed on an R1? Like on that 84-foot lot?
Through the chair to the member of the public, a semi-detached as defined in our zoning bylaw is not permitted on an R1. So that basically is 2 units side by side with a common wall.
Mm-hmm.
What we do permit, again, as of right from the province, you can have up to 3 units. We have additional provisions that require what we call them to be secondary suites. So it would just need, the second unit would just need to be subordinate to the primary unit, and it would need to be, I think, 80% of the size of the primary unit. So while a semi-detached as defined in our zoning bylaw, no, but certainly multiple units within the same structure are permitted.
And that's, I cannot understand that at all. You're still getting the 2 units on that property, and there are some pretty nice looking semis around, if you have the right plan. Much nicer than having a great big garage in front, which you have to have on a 42-foot lot, and the kitchen and everything else in the living room, back. I realize the area is large enough for it, but the frontage, it just isn't. And I don't know why a semi is not allowed on an 80-foot lot, let's say, 84-foot lot. All it always was, except it was 66 feet, I believe. Like I said, a semi-detached unit, a well-planned, is much nicer in the neighborhood than these 2 with the garages in front, which council was against some years ago. That they hated the protruding garage way out of the front, which, so that's another area.
We'll go back to Aaron to answer that one.
Sorry, through the chair again to Mr. Linker. I do want to clarify that these changes through the province where they're allowing us to have multiple units, this is something that has come about in the last, I think Mr. McGuire said, 18 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
So our zoning bylaw has not been updated to reflect the current situation. We are undergoing a zoning bylaw review. We've done the kickoff meeting, and certainly bringing our zoning bylaw into conformity with the provincial plan is number 1 on our list of things to do. So we have not gotten to the point where we're evaluating, what that really looks like and how that's reflected in our documents. But certainly the fact that 3 units per property are permitted will be part of our evaluation. So right now, when I say, technically a semi-detached is not allowed as it's defined in our zoning bylaw, we do allow the multiple units, and certainly that probably will be changing or may change through the zoning bylaw review.
Well, yeah, the policy boggles my mind where we can't have a semi-detached, a good-looking semi-detached rather than what I had just described. And we prefer that, if anything, there, as an alternate.
That would allow people to have access to their backyards and everything if you had that type of house there, and it would look appropriate in the neighborhood.
That much better, yeah.
And I don't know what Don's thought on it is, but
No.
you're not interested in that? No?
Yeah.
Can I ask a question? So if the zoning, as it stands, says 15 meters, why isn't that the rule you're enforcing? That's what the zoning says today. That's the rule in place today. Why is that not enforced?
I go back to Aaron for that.
Thank you, Chair. While certainly our zoning bylaw does set out the lot provisions that are required in each zone, the province, through the Planning Act, certainly allows variances to these provisions. And the intent is really to allow some flexibility on a site-by-site basis.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm saying, what is the rule that's on the books today? It's 15 meters, to my understanding.
You are correct.
That's what should be enforced.
Certainly in this situation.
Until such time that changes, that's the rule.
Yep.
Yeah, but I think the conversation needs to be
Right.
up here now. It's moved from gallery
Yeah,
to
it
the
is.
committee, so.
So I'm going to go now to our committee for any other questions or concerns. Seeing none, then I'm looking for a recommendation.
Yeah, again, I appreciate the concerns, but I think the application is a fair one, and so I'm making the motion to approve both the consent and the minor variance.
Okay, we'll do them one at a time. The application for minor variance then is what you're supporting.
Yep.
I need support for that. Randeep, all in favor? That carries. And also a recommendation for the application for consent. Frank again, supported by Randeep, all in favor? And that carries.
I do have one other comment, if I may. As I said earlier in my statement, three PDCs, or whatever we call them, private, right, stubs were connected on this side of the road. One was, I paid for all three of those because we just didn't know what was going to happen in the severance committee of adjustment, right? So I paid for all three of them. One has been so-called decommissioned, which I also paid for, which I think is just a matter of shutting off the tap at that particular point. So here's a matter of some expense that I have incurred, and now it's now I guess it's if this all goes ahead through council and all that, that's an expense that I've incurred, and
But you sold the property and the new
there has to
owner
be
will be
some
taking care of it,
refund
right?
for that.
Yeah, but you sold the property and the new owner will be taking care of whatever needs to be done, right?
I'm sorry?
But you sold the property, right? You no longer own the property,
Right.
right? So whatever's been sold is sold, the new owner will be taking charge of whatever it needs.
Well, no, but that stuff was paid for by me, and it's sitting there now, and nobody can use it.
Yeah,
And if somebody does use it, I'm gonna have to be reimbursed for that.
I have no comment for that.
It's a minor point, but
Yeah, yeah.
that's not the reason for this meeting.
Right,
That's
correct,
not the
yeah.
point. We're still totally against
Yeah, okay.
the proposal. Thank
No,
you.
appreciate your comments, thank you. So we're moving on to number 6, inquiries by members. Seeing none, then our schedule of meetings, our next one is August 1st and then September the 5th. Then I'm looking for a recommendation for adjournment. Randy, supported by Frank. All in favor? That carries. Thank you.